Hello, I'd like to welcome everybody to another episode of Veterans Talk. Just for a quick recap, our first episode was with C.B. Anderson, talked about the Dunlap Foundation. That's a foundation where you can get uniforms for your loved ones when they pass away if they want to be buried in their uniforms. The second one was about the National Cemetery, very historical video talking about the National Cemetery. If you want to learn a little bit about it, you should look at that video. The third one was about the Honor Guard. The Honor Guard, they need help doing the ceremonies and stuff at the cemetery and other places, so if you could, go to my web page and contact them. And the last one we did was about the DAV. Today we're going to do with the veterans part, but before we do that, let me get out a little bit of information here. First off, on November the 8th, we're going to have Salute to the Veterans. That's going to be at the Florence Baptist Temple at 9 o'clock. On November the 10th is the Marine Corps Ball. You need to contact Don Jones at 843-667-9697. Next is November the 11th. It's going to be Veterans Day at the Veterans Park. We'll get into that a little more here in today's show. On the 12th at the Golden Corral is Military Appreciation Day. And on November the 26th is the last day for the reefs. If you want to have a reef for the National Cemetery, that's the last day they can be done. And just so people know what that is what happened a long time ago. There was a reef company up somewhere up north that had some leftover reefs one time when they were doing reefs for Christmas. And they decided it'd be a good idea to put the reefs on graves at veterans at Arlington Cemetery. So they went out and did that, and now it's caught on to all the national cemeteries throughout the nation. And every year the different areas get together and they get reefs to put on the cemetery. The first year we did it, we had 400. Last year we put out like 1,600. And there are 9,000 graves at the National Cemetery that we would like to one day be able to provide a wreath for all of them. If you have a person that you would like to individually, a loved one or someone that has passed away that you know of that you would like to get a wreath for them individually, you can do that. If you've been out to Sam's lately, you've seen some of the organizations. I think Rolling Thunder was out there doing the wreaths the other day. So just look around, or you can go to the web page at FlorenceCountyVeteranAffairs.com and find some people to talk to about the wreaths. Now we're going to get with the veterans part. Here today we got Chairman Barry Wingard. Is that how you say it?
Wingard, yeah.
Wingard, yes. Give us a little bit of history about the Veterans Park.
Okay. Well, first of all, Randy, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity, and again, thank you and your staff for what you do for all the veterans in this area. It's just it's something I'm fairly fond of and very passionate about is what we can do to help our veterans. And I am chairman of the Veterans Park and have 5 members on my committee. We have representatives from World War II, Korea, Desert Storm, Iraq, Afghanistan, and we have all the branches of the military represented except the Air Force right now. Currently there's no Air Force member, but we have Army, Navy, and Marine on the committee, and it was designed to try to cover the generations and the services so that everybody's represented fairly. The park itself was a vision of the former mayor, Frank Willis. Several years ago now, about probably 8-9 years ago now, he wanted to do something to recognize the veterans of the PD area, but he wanted it to be a city park, which that's exactly how it turned out. But there were several years of working with people to try to find the right location. That was probably the longest pole in the tent in military terms, and then we just lucked into quite good fortune of landing a very valuable, strategically located piece of property at 3300 West Rodeo, which is adjacent to the Civic Center, right. Less than a half mile from I-20 and I-95 intersection, right off David McLeod Boulevard. 6.5 acres, and this property was donated to the city for the purpose of a Veterans Park by the Byrd Estate. Now, the most recognizable name in the Byrd Estate is former U.S. Congressman Ed Young. Congressman Young was himself a World War II fighter pilot in the Pacific in the Army Air Corps. just a great human being, great humanitarian, but he and the rest of the bird state gave us 6.5 acres of land. And it's just an ideal site. And once we had the site, then the wheels really could get into motion, designing it, laying it out, getting city involved with what the city could do and what we were going to do with outside help, sponsors, donations, and so forth. And today it's to me, of course I'm prejudiced, but you'd be hard pressed to find a better Veterans Park anywhere in South Carolina, maybe in the Southeast. And we got a long way to go, but right now you can go out there and there's so much to see that it's very emotional for a lot of people.
Right. Now, how is it managed? Who manages it?
Okay, we as part of the Parks and Beautification Committee have a lot of say-so on what goes there, what goes on there, but the final voice in everything we do is the city. It is a city park and abides by the same rules and regulations as all the parks in the city. But if you want to use it for something other than what I consider a Veterans Day ceremony, a Flag Day ceremony, or something that's militarily or veterans or patriotic related, there is a procedure where you can apply to the city for use. But I'd like to talk about the park itself and what we have there right now, because most people cannot believe that this park was just dedicated in 2009. It's only, be 4 years old. This year will be our 4th Veterans Day there. And as you enter the park, there's a beautiful wall with just Florence Veterans Park, very simple. It has the seal of the city of Florence on there. And adjacent or nearby are some plaques that are in the ground dedicated to the city council members at the time that made this possible, Mayor Willis and the city council in 2009. There's another park for another plaque in the ground for the members of the Veterans Park Committee at that time, which was much larger than 6 because there were so many moving parts to put the whole thing together. And if I'll just take you in a counterclockwise around the park. It's a rectangle, but we'll do it that way. If you go from that sign straight ahead of you in the center of the park is the monument. It's 3 columns with an eagle on top.
Correct.
On each side of the column is a disc. It's a symbol representing the 5 services plus the merchant marine who was big in World War II, as you probably know. So those are the people that we recognize in this park: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, and Merchant Marine. And this monument was awarded the ¡1 monument in a public park in North America.
That's outstanding.
In 2009.
2009.
And it was designed it was a combination effort by Brown Memorials here in Florence and a local sculptor here in Florence, who I'll mention several times before the day's over, Alex Palkovich, internationally known and probably one of the best in the country that does what he does.
Yes,
so, to your right, if you're staring at that monument, the first monument you're going to come across is one to the Marine Corps and to the Marine Corps League, and it was put in. The funds to put that in, as all our monuments are, we try very hard to keep taxpayers from having to do any more support for the veterans than is already done. But the first monument was put in by the Marine Corps League here in Florence, and it's dedicated to the Marines and the Marine Corps League. And it's the first monument to the right that you'll see. And as you proceed down that sidewalk, the next one you come to is one to MIA and POW. Right. And it's a 2-sided monument, so there's information on both sides about our prisoners of war and our missing in action. And the money for that monument was raised by local Rolling Thunder, Legion Riders, some of the groups. They raised the money on their own through, poker runs,
different things,
chicken bogs, you name it. They came up with the money. if you take a right at that monument, so now that you're headed in an easterly direction, you headed toward the last monument to be put in, which is the Home Safe Monument. As you get about halfway there, if you pause and turn to your left and look north, you'll see the majesticness of the centerpiece with the eagle on top and the flags in the background. It's just a beautiful view. Whoever designed that to begin with just must have had it in. It's too good a view to have been an accident. I mean, somebody was really smart, an architect or somebody said, let's do it this way. But as you proceed on, you come to Home Safe Monument, and this one is my favorite. I'm going to say that about 2 or 3. One reason or another, I like them all. But this one is done again by Alex Palkovich. It's a larger-than-life depiction of a soldier coming home from somewhere, being greeted by his wife and his son and his daughter. And when you look at it, I know you've seen it, the detail is just meticulous. The ribbons, the rank on the sleeve, everything, the buttons are done just precisely. I mean, it's amazing how well or how authentic everything looks. As you turn left from the Home Safe Monument and proceed on a northerly direction now, you're coming up on a couple of things. On your right, you're going to come up on the Oath of Enlistment, which we thought when we first started this that that was significant to every veteran. The oath is slightly different in the Navy from the Army and from the Air Force. It's just semantics, word changes. But the oath itself, everybody takes when they join the military. And one thing I like to point out is it doesn't have a time limit on it. It doesn't have an expiration date. You're declaring yourself to be an American forever.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Okay, and that wall is a lot of people ask about it. It's rusting. That was designed that way by an artist. That it's supposed to look the way it looks. Is what I tell people. Standing there, if you do an about face or a 180 and turn around, you'll see on your left the Desert Storm Monument. Now, the Desert Storm Monument came to us. It was at the museum here in Florence.
Okay.
And when we opened the park, the city said, or somebody, I'm not sure who originated the idea, said, this ought to go in the park. So we just moved that monument from the museum to the park. Directly across from the Desert Storm Museum is a plaque in the ground, which is to World War II. Now, it's a plaque that stood in the old library, which is now a law office, but over on Irby Street. Irby Street.
Yeah.
And the plaque is dedicated to the people that served in World War II from Florence. So when the new library was built, this just kind of got put away.
Okay.
And there was another for World War I, identical to it, except it was for World War I. And the museum that had given us Desert Storm now has the World War I monument, and it's hanging in the museum, and I don't know if it's going to the new museum or not. And we got the World War II monument, and it's out there. So going back again now at the Oath of Enlistment, as you continue moving in a northerly direction, you'll see the bank of flags, which is just a backdrop that it's hard to beat with anything. It's so beautiful, and I've been out there on days when all of the flags were at half staff, and it can be emotional just seeing it, because we have all the services, the South Carolina flag, the U.S. flag, and we also have a POWMIA flag, which technically is not authorized, but I don't think anybody's going to ever say it shouldn't be there.
I don't think so. No.
When I say it's not authorized, it's just not it's not a regular
approved type flag.
You wouldn't see it probably on a lot of federal government property, but it's nothing wrong with it being there, in my opinion. And from there, I need to back up because we walked by as we were walking the 9/11 monument,
That's
which
right.
we dedicated on 9/11 of last year. It is, when I said I have favorites, this one has a lot of meaning to me because I knew people in the Pentagon the day that the plane crashed into the Pentagon. I was able to, along with some others, we were able to secure a 174-pound block of granite, block of stone out of the Pentagon from the facade where the plane crashed into it. And this stone I brought back down here, and Alex Palkovich again, sculptor, did a little thing, not a sculpting thing, but he designed what a monument that just tears me up when I see it because I know what it stands for. But that block of stone is centered in a 5-sided pentagon on 2 columns, and it's about 15 feet tall here, but it is symmetrical to show the exact. Symmetrical is not the word I mean, but it's exactly the columns represent their height. The Twin Towers I'm talking about. The Twin Towers represent the size of the Pentagon. So you have the Pentagon sitting on top of Twin Towers, and you have a real piece of that horrible day sitting there.
So the shape of the Pentagon on top is supposed to be the size of the actual Pentagon compared to the 2 Twin Towers.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It's dedicated to all the first responders that lost their lives that day, and the members of our military that have responded to chase down these terrorists that did this evil act. And then across, as you pass by the flags now, you come to probably the most meaningful and emotional part of the park, and that's the Wall of Honor, we call it. And right now we have 5 walls, and we, as of November the 11th, when we do our next dedication of 36 more veterans from the PD, that'll bring 2.5 walls will be filled. Although there is a possibility that if we ever get to the point, we could do the back sides and double our numbers. We have this next dedication will bring our total number of PD area veterans who've been honored to 540, which is really good. And the plaques on the wall include the name of the veteran, if he served in a war, which war, or a lot of them, multiple wars. There are circumstances where you can etch a picture and maybe a medal or something like that. We have one going up on this next plaque, which will be a first. We have a military police dog handler from Vietnam era who will have his dog's picture etched alongside his picture rather than putting a medal or something. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's really good.
Cool. And then if you leave, continuing back to where we started, if you leave the Wall of Honor, you come to the Purple Heart Monument. And again, this money for this monument was raised by local people in the Purple Heart Society. And of course, you have to be a Purple Heart recipient to have that. So there was a lot of behind-the-scenes work that went on with them to raise the money to put in their monument. And that pretty much takes us all the way around. It's beautiful anyway. The city maintains it as far as cutting the grass, replacing trees that die, putting in shrubs, and putting out pine straw, that sort of thing. But as far as adding something, bricks and mortar type thing to the park, we pretty much have been able to have outside funding for that kind of thing through donations and charitable organizations and so forth.
Now, talking about the Wall of Honor, get back to that a minute. I just want to. They can get the applications and stuff from me if you know someone that you want to have on the Wall of Honor, or if you yourself want to be on there. And I know they can contact you, and they can contact basically about any of the military organizations know how to get that application to fill out that if they want to be on that wall.
Yeah.
So.
I'm glad you reminded me. That's very important. The wall itself is for PD area veterans honorably discharged who served in our military. And we interpret the PD loosely in the sense that it could be somebody that was from the PD who now lives somewhere else, or someone who served when they lived somewhere else and is now in the PD. A lot of them are loved ones, and they're often given as we've had a few that want to surprise their recipient, maybe a Christmas present or a birthday present, so that when they take him out on Veterans Day and they unveil the wall and there's his name and plaque and so forth.
Hopefully that'll be a present that'll last forever,
Yes,
as long as the park's
absolutely.
there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And know it'll be taken care of as long as we're here to take care of it. Yeah.
Yep.
What kind of events do you have out there at the park?
Okay, as a rule, we always do the Veterans Day on Veterans Day, and this year it's going to be a little different because, as you know, Veterans Day is always the 11th hour, the 11th month, the 11th day, 11th month, 11/11/11, and that's because that's when World War I ended.
Okay.
So it's easy to remember, 11/11/11. However, this year, the 11th of November falls on a Sunday. So we talked about it in the committee. Did we want to do it on Saturday? Did we want to do it on Monday? Did we want to do it on Sunday at some time other than 11 so we wouldn't conflict with church? And that's what we decided to do. We're doing it on Sunday, November the 11th, but it'll be at 3 o'clock in the afternoon instead of 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Other events the day before, on November the 10th, indirectly related, there's going to be a 5K, Veterans Day 5K. It's going to the course is actually at McLeod Fitness Center, but it's being sponsored by McLeod Fitness Center and the National Guard here locally. So
now is that going to start at the McLeods or going to start at the Veteran Park? Okay.
We have a 5K laid out, 5K track laid out at the Veterans Park, and we did a race there last May, the week before Armed Forces Day, and so we're going to try to make both of these annual events, 5K races. Other day, we have had a ceremony out there on Flag Day, which was well attended. Surprisingly, that's June 14th. We also, as you recall, this past July 3rd, the night before July 4th, we had a concert with the National Guard Band. Outstanding concert, but it was about 100 degrees. So we didn't get to do it outdoors. As you remember, we moved into the Civic Center, and I would like again to do some open air military band concerts, but we're probably going to look at doing them in the spring or the fall before it gets so hot.
And speaking of that, on Veterans Day, if it's raining or whatever, that's also going to be moved over into the Civic Center.
We have
correct?
a crash site or inclement weather site. We are going into the Civic Center, so the Veterans Day will take place rain or shine.
Okay. Now, I think you touched over this a little bit earlier, but just to reiterate it, if another organization want to utilize the Veterans Park, what kind of means or what would they have to go through to be able to do that?
It's not that hard to do because this is not a place that's terribly busy. You know, it is tied into the rail trail, and so you have joggers and walkers and people walking their dogs and people just coming out to rest and relax and whatnot. So there's people there a lot often, but if you want to have some kind of formal event, you're going to have to ultimately have approval from the city. Now you can go directly to the city, and they're going to tell us and ask us if the committee has any objections, or if you come to the committee, we'll make a recommendation to the city. We've had memorials for deceased veterans out there. One Sunday afternoon, we had a memorial for a gentleman, World War II veteran that passed away not too long ago, and it was well attended. It was surprisingly well attended. We have a thing coming up next Friday. The local Army Recruiting Command, which has a headquarters here in Florence, is going to have a change of responsibility ceremony. They have the first sergeant is leaving and a new first sergeant is coming in, so they're going to have all the soldiers from the surrounding counties and family members there, and probably recognize the outgoing and welcome the incoming. You know, that one is a no-brainer. I mean, you know, and for the deceased World War II veteran for the memorial. A little more of an issue that we have to make sure we're okay with. We have a pending. I say pending. The Veterans Committee has blessed it. I don't know that the city. I don't even know if the city has said whether they will or not. we have a request for a wedding out there.
Okay.
A young couple want to get married next spring, and I can't think of a prettier setting. And one of the things for using the park is you have to be a veteran or military connected. Now, you know, if you wanted to use it as a non-veteran, it's not impossible. But
it could possibly be done.
It could be a relative that sponsors it, but we just want to keep it not veteran pure, but veteran oriented throughout, because that's what it's for.
And speaking of that, we did forget one thing that you did have out there not long ago, the MP unit.
Well, I was going to talk about that. You know, other than the grand opening, the dedication on November the 9th, when we had retired Marine Major General Charles Bolden, who is now the director of NASA, but he was a fighter pilot in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and in Vietnam. He was our speaker that day, and we had a huge crowd, close to 5,000 people. I mean, you know, 6.5 acres of people. But we've had outstanding speakers ever since, and we got another outstanding speaker coming this year, General Spittler from 3rd Army RCENT. Down at their 3rd Army is now at Shaw Air Force Base in Sumter, so not too far away. But the next two events that have been so well attended and so well accepted involved the departure ceremony for the 133rd Military Police Company, which is headquartered in Timminsville, just down the road, and made up of soldiers from really all over South Carolina, but predominantly from PD. When they left in September of 2011 for Afghanistan, we had a huge turnout and a ceremony for them, and it was on a weekday. And that's, you know, I said, that's really a good turnout to be on a weekday. But their return, which we didn't have any say-so on when they got back, because it was all arranged, they were still on active duty and catching planes and bus rides and all that stuff. So we had a generic Sunday morning. And I'm saying, you know, I know the families will come, but, you know, this is 10:30 is going to directly go up against church. I doubt we'll have many people there. Lord, we had 1,500, 2,000 people come.
Yes.
And it was to see those soldiers hug and kiss their kids and wives and girlfriends and moms and dads. It was just. You were out there. It was something. It was something.
I don't know who it was. Was it the sergeant or whatever that gave the speech there to his troops, or I'm not.
That was the company commander.
Company commander. Captain, he was real
Chad
emotional,
Bryant.
And man, it was touching.
Well, you know, they were in a pretty hot spot coast down in Afghanistan. It's on the Pakistan border.
Yeah.
It's a rough area. It's not where you want to go midnight strolling. And they had several wounded, and unfortunately had 3 killed in action. So they had a tour that they're all going to remember for the rest of their lives, and that probably enhances how glad the local people are to see them home, because in fact the unit that replaced them had several killed about a month after they got back. So I mean, you know, it's our soldiers are in harm's way every day, and Marines and all the military, and we sometimes forget about that, I think.
Yeah. Well, real quick before we finish here, tell me a little bit about yourself. You're also prior military, correct?
Yeah. Well, altogether, I had a long time. I was allowed to stay in the service a long time, and I feel very fortunate. That's one of the things that I was blessed with, that my country would let me serve in uniform. Okay. And I miss it.
Oh, I know.
You know, it was easy to get up each day and know what you had to wear and know where you had to go.
That's right.
And all that. It's kind of complicated the way I did it, but if you put it all together, I served in the National Guard, I served in the active duty Army, and then I had a recall to active duty, and when I went back, everybody that got recalled following retirement was classified as an Army reservist. So I got to serve in all 3 components of the Army, and altogether it's a little over 36 years. So,
okay.
But it was fun, and I was lucky that I never had any. When I look back on it now, there weren't that many bad times at all. But all of our committee members, like Sergeant Major Pridgeon, Marine, he served in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
I think he has 2 or 3 Purple Hearts. Dave Phillips drove, I'll get the name of the boat wrong. But
LST.
LST
Yeah,
in World War II. Bruce Malik served, he was Special Forces Army and served in both Desert Storm and Vietnam. And Donnie Carter, he was an infantryman in Vietnam. And our youngest guy is Michael Montrose, who was first sergeant of the 133rd Military Police Company that deployed to Afghanistan recently, and prior to that he had served in Iraq. So he served in Iraq and Afghanistan, which gives us a pretty good coverage of all the wars. We have a representative, and like I said, we have Army, Navy, and Marine represented on the committee right now.
And speaking of World War II, the Dave Phillips is now, from what I understand, everything is a go for the World War II monument. They're getting ready to start the press conference here coming up. What date, I really don't know. Do you remember if he gave you an actual date?
I am not sure I know what date it is.
I'm
I'm
not
told
sure
it's
either.
this coming Thursday.
It may be this coming Thursday.
But that's about all I know, and what I
Yeah,
heard
yeah,
was secondhand. But yeah, Dave has been pushing for this. That's in a positive way. I'm not. He has been the driving force, I guess, is a better way to put it, behind this World War II monument, and I want to be able to fulfill his wishes, because for him and all the World War II veterans who, as you know, leave us. Seems like too many a day. The greatest generation is getting away from us. And it'd be nice to honor those that are left as quick as we can with something they can look at. The design has been completed, as I understand it.
Yeah, it has, and it's going to be the picture of the guy with the letter sitting inside the blown-out wall with, and just so everybody knows, one of the things that they're going to be working on, and they need, the college is actually involved in this. Francis Marion here is involved. They're going to be getting letters from people throughout the PD, throughout the area, of World War II letters, and they're going to actually have them letters on the post around the monument. So it'll be, so people from the area will have letters that from the local area around the monument too.
Right, you're exactly right. It's going to be localized as much as possible, but the soldier depicted in the wall reading a letter is representative of all service personnel who got letters when they were overseas and catch up from home. And it's a very poignant scene. You immediately know what it is.
You'll remember it.
You immediately know as soon as you look at it. Same thing with Home Safe. As soon as you see it, nobody has to tell you what they're doing. You understand exactly what's going on as the artist depicts it. Earlier we talked about the Wall of Honor, and I don't want to forget. Okay. You have some applications. If people do want an application to put a loved one on the Wall of Honor, or a veteran, to me, owes it to themselves to get their name up there. The Veterans Office has them. Brown Memorials has them. The City Parks and Recreation on Barnes Street has them. City Chamber of Commerce has them, and Brown Memorials has them. Okay. So any of those locations should have applications that you can fill out, and
that's very good.
we will. We do verify every one of them to validate that they are an honorably discharged veteran. As you know, a whole other issue is some of these people that pretend to have served when they didn't, or worse to me, they pretend to have medals or something that they didn't or
because they should know better. Well, you think we covered everything there pretty much?
I just would encourage people, when the local people, when you're here in Florence or the surrounding areas and you have visitors from out of town, and you want to show them something really neat about Florence. There's a lot of neat stuff going on between the library and the Performing Arts Center and the new museum.
The new museum coming up.
But this Veterans Park is it's worth a visit. Go out there and stroll around for a while. Read the words on the monuments and document the plaques and so forth. And chances are, if you've been here for more than a year or two, there's some people on that wall of honor that you know them. So, you can say, hey, I saw your name out there. Thank you for serving.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna tell you what, the park is second to none that I've been around anyway in my lifetime, and I really do appreciate you being on the show here with us today. Thank you for your service.
Thank you for yours.
Yeah, thank you. Before we get going, I want to do a quick mail call, and this mail call is going to be something on a more serious note, and it's more about Vietnam veterans. It's been brought to my attention that there may be some Vietnam veterans that were exposed to Agent Orange that may have already passed away or having problems today and are not being compensated in the way in which they should be. If this is a case, or if you think it is a case, please contact my office and we will help you further assist you with this issue. Other than that, and the Veterans Day at the park is going to be at 3 o'clock on Sunday. Don't forget that, and I hope to see all of you there. Thank you.
November 11th.
November the 11th, yes. Thank you.